Shabbat Shalom. Did you know that the Torah sees tears, weeping, as holy? Our Torah portion this week is Vayigash, which includes just that kind of sacred tears. Joseph finds himself face to face with the brothers who have sold him into slavery and sent him off to a life of total anguish, separation from all he knows and loves, and possible death. Imagine that you are Joseph. You've surmounted incredible odds and landed in a position of power. Your brother's hatred of you created a life of terrible trauma that only later led to success. Your father never came to look for you, and you have no idea that he was told that you were killed by wild animals. Maybe you finally made your peace with leaving behind the entirety of your old life. What bitterness you must taste. What shock at confronting it all again now. What decision would you make? Would you punish these people for what they did? Or would you seek to learn what had transpired in their lives, what spiritual and emotional growth they had found in all these years? Well, Joseph does the latter. He tests his brothers to see if they are the same terrible souls they were back in the youth. And when he discovers that time and life and circumstances have changed them, that they are repentant and humbled, something happens to Joseph. Something inside him collapses. On the verge of a flood of tears, he sends all his advisors and servants out of the room, and weeping, he says to his stunned brothers, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph. Od Avichai, is my father still alive? As they stand in shock, he reassures them, do not be distressed. Do not reproach yourselves for selling me into slavery, because it was to save life that God sent me ahead of you. He and his brothers all fall into weeping, and really Joseph doesn't stop. Commentators suggest that these tears continue to fall from his eyes all the way through the time his brothers return with Jacob, his father. Once the floodgates have opened, they just simply cannot stop. And so it is rather stunning that when Jacob arrives and this moment of reunification happens, our great commentator Rashi notices that Jacob doesn't cry. Maybe Jacob was so emotionally shut off having lost his son that he simply can't cry anymore. There are no more tears left within him to shed. He has been through too much emotional pain to have anything left to offer. But Rashi goes on to say that while Joseph continues to weep, Jacob, we are told, recites the Shema. These are words we not only say each time we pray, but they are supposed to be the final words we say on our deathbed. Was Jacob finally ready to die, knowing that Joseph was actually alive, having seen his son one last time? Not surprisingly, though, the rabbis seem quite concerned about how we perceive Jacob. We can't be allowed to see Jacob as an emotionally shut down being. Instead, Rashi suggests that Jacob recites the part of the Shema we know as Ve'ahavta, and you shall love Adonai your God, and so forth. The rabbis go on to explain that Jacob is at risk of loving his son even more than he loves God, and so he turns himself away from possible tears by proclaiming his love for God. While I think this is interesting and kind to Jacob that the rabbis do this little intellectual dance, I'm not sure I buy it. Haven't you been in moments when you thought you would cry, but you couldn't? Moments when you expected your heart to break open, but it didn't? When you felt like that, ask yourself why. Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch explains it this way. Joseph cried, Jacob no longer cried. Jacob had already finished crying, but Joseph just began when he spoke of his father. Sometimes we stop crying because we've reached a level of emotional overwhelm. There's no blame in this for Jacob. It's fully imaginable that he has been through so much that he cannot at this moment open. But maybe there's something else. Maybe Jacob is behaving like a truly extraordinary parent. He holds the space for Joseph to cry. He holds Joseph as his body is racked with sobs. He stands firm and strong in that embrace. Maybe you've experienced times of emotional overwhelm where the tears wouldn't come. But maybe too, you've experienced the moments when tears shouldn't come. The times when you have to be present for someone, and that would mean you cannot cry. When to stand there and hold space for someone dry-eyed means I'm here. I'm attending fully to you and not to my own pain. We have a lot of work to do to figure out how to be present for one another. The world in all its connectivity can make us feel isolated and alone. Maybe this is a reminder of how much we need each other and just how to be present and show up. Shabbat Shalom.